Well, what a difference a week makes. What a difference.
Big changes.
Big things happening. So last week, I was but a humble, longest reigning PCW Women's Champion of all time.
Emphasis on the humility.
Oh, of course. I like to downplay my magnificent accomplishments. So, I am also now, over the span of 7 days, I have become the greatest Korean wrestling champion to have never set foot in Korea. I am the PWS Street Champion because their commentator, Charlie West, blagged it and very foolishly brought it to Pursuit Pro Wrestling, where I showed him around and gave him a real hands-on experience with a PPW wrestling ring. It's a very handsome belt, and it's mine. I can now say I am a Korean wrestling title holder, and that happened just a few days after we finally announced Date Everything. So, yeah, big exciting things for those who don't know. Team 17 announced a game developed by Sassy Chap, which is a studio founded by a lot of voice actors. Date Everything, it's a sandbox dating sim in which you date everything. And many people have asked me what specific things. I can't say. All I can say is I'm a writer on it. The actual details of what I wrote, that will be public eventually, but not right now. But yeah, that is my next writing credit. And I'm also Steffi Two Belts. I tell you what as well, just on while we're doing good news, I finally found ADHD meds that work.
Woo!
So that's been really good. Past couple of weeks I've been on Amfexa now. And I tell you what as well, right? It's got similar properties to Adderall because they're in the same family, except Adderall didn't work, these ones do. But it's also got the same ability to curb compulsive eating. So, hey, your girl's getting svelte again after moving to a country that has Greggs, which did put a bit back on.
Yeah.
And I've not felt great about it, and I've been sort of working on my own sort of terms to get back to where I was. But I tell you what, that's fucking helped. So your girl is doing all right, aside from the searing back pain that I've got going on today.
We take the wins where we can find them.
Exactly, and I won the PWS Street Championship. I don't know if I pointed that out. We're also rapidly approaching 500 days as PCW Women's Champion.
Ooh.
Reigning and commanding.
Well,
best in show.
Well, funny you mentioned 500 as a number.
Oh,
it's
shit!
Podquisition 500 today.
You literally forgot.
You know when we said we'd work something out?
Oh, don't worry. I worked some shit out, Steph. I'm on it. It's all good.
That's the good thing about this podcast, is that Laura's dependable.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You know, we can have a call last week where we say we'll work something out, and then no one responds to making plans. It's fine. I jump on the grenade. I got plans for us. We got some episode 500-y bits going on.
I mean, to be honest,
I'll sneak them in.
I just sat down to play Conscript, and it was only by chance that I checked my phone and saw that it was 4 minutes past recording time, and rushed over
You
here.
were about a minute before me sending the have you remembered Podquisitions on message.
Yeah. Episode 500, that's how I should have started this, instead of bigging myself up.
Hey, you accidentally segued really well to it being episode 500. Yeah, if you hadn't have said you didn't know, I'd have played it off as a deliberate segue. So yeah, I've got some episode 500-y stuff to sprinkle into this episode. But also, before we jump into the usual bit where we talk about stuff we've been playing, we got a thing that kind of has to go at the top of the episode because video game strikes are going on, and we should probably talk about them and address what that means for the podcast and the mess of stuff going on around that before we jump into anything else, I reckon.
So, strikes have been announced in honour of the 500th episode of Podquisition. I've decided everything is in honour of the 500th episode of Podquisition.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
There's that humility again.
Well,
Yeah.
to quote Ian Boldsworth, I've got humility coming out of my massive cock. Do please illuminate us on what's going on, because it is very sort of big stuff.
So the basic news is that last week, on the same day we published the most recent Podquisition episode, a couple of hours later we got the news that SAG-AFTRA's video game voice acting portion of the union is going on strike. This shouldn't be surprising to anyone. The union authorized a strike action back in September of last year, with something like 98% approval from the union members. So a very well approved of strike that was basically, hey, we'll keep negotiating, but we have really strong support from the members that if we call the strike, they will go ahead with the strike. This all centers around voice acting, and specifically AI and how it is being pushed on voice actors. Without getting too much into the specifics, when the screen actors portion of SAG-AFTRA did their big strike last year and eventually sort of came to an agreement with the big movie studios and got a new contract sorted, a lot of video game voice actors at the time pointed out that they felt they'd been a little fucking left in the lurch by that new contract, in that it did not offer them protections from AI in the same way it seemed to be doing for screen actors, and concerns about, will my voice be used to train AI? Will you reproduce my voice using AI without my consent? Will you try and force me to agree to AI stuff by being shady with oh, well, we'll give the role to people who are okay with AI and not to the people who aren't okay with AI, and basically de facto force it in. The voice actors want really good, firm protections from AI becoming a big part of how the video game industry does voice acting.
Yeah.
Which is all really, really good to be pushing for.
And we should say, it's very pointed that voice actors did not get the same consideration that screen actors got. Voice actors just don't get the respect they deserve. They just don't.
Yeah. And honestly, I think we've seen this with a lot of sub-industries that weren't as protected as that didn't win those same kind of protections last year as screen actors did. We've seen it with animation guilds, we've seen it with voice actors, we've seen it in a lot of, other areas that are not the celebrity you see on the screen.
Yeah.
Now, some specific companies have been mentioned by name as strike targets, but they are not exclusively being targeted. They are part of a bargaining committee that is basically a stand-in for the wider games industry. So we can talk about the specific companies that have been brought up. Many of them I won't name by name because they are companies that do behind-the-scenes hiring for other developers that you will have heard of. But some big names: Electronic Arts, Take-Two, Warner Brothers Games, and Insomniac are some of the big names that have been explicitly mentioned. Basically, voice actors are being asked not to work on new video game projects while this strike is going on. There are, however, a couple of complications, and we'll get to those in a second, but I think, the good thing to get out of the way is, what does this mean for us? And while SAG-AFTRA have not been clear about every discipline within video games that this could end up impacting, two that we can say that they've talked about in an FAQ are streamers and podcasters. So in both cases, at this moment, SAG-AFTRA are not asking people not to stream video games or to not talk about games that they've played on podcasts. They're not asking you to boycott playing games from these companies or covering them in the way that you would usually cover them. But what they are asking is, hey, if you discuss a video game, particularly if it's one you can identify is being targeted as a strike target, remind people that there's a strike happening and, as part of talking about those games. So it shouldn't make a big difference in terms of how Podquisition goes. At the moment, they are not asking for a targeted boycott of playing or discussing these games, but best advice right now is if we, talk about a game that has a big budget game that's got voice acting in it, remind people, hey, there's a strike going on and do what you can to be supportive of it.
Gladly.
Yeah. However, there's a couple of complications around the strike that I think are worth talking about, because there has been a lot of complication about how this strike has been talked about, and I think it's important to note that several of the big AAA game companies are trying to be deliberately a bit misleading about whether they are strike targets or not. the big place that this started with is Kotaku had an article that went up last week talking about the fact that they had seen a copy of a contract that basically seemed to suggest that any video game that had started development prior to August of 2023 was not a strike target. And this specifically came in the context of the developers behind Grand Theft Auto 6 coming to Kotaku and saying, we are not a strike target, despite Take-Two being mentioned as one of the big companies mentioned in the companies that are sort of being thought of as strike targets. This is technically true but misleading. Some legal terms have been grandfathered in when SAG and AFTRA as two separate organizations emerged. Technically, yes. Anything that started development prior to the negotiations around this strike starting in September is not officially a strike target. However, if you look at what SAG-AFTRA are saying on all of their communications and social media, they are basically trying to say, we cannot legally tell you that that is a strike target in an official sense, but if you would like to stand in solidarity with the strike, please act as if that's a strike target.
I mean, the thing is whether a game's a strike target or not, just frequently reminding the audience that this is going on in the industry is valid.
Yeah, and to give a good example of, like, where this conflict is arising, another example is EA's Andrew Wilson has made a similar statement going, this was part of a shareholder earnings call where someone asked him, hey, are EA games likely to be affected by this strike? And his response was, no, none of the titles we have in development right now are likely to see any disruption because, we're not, our current projects are not strike targets. Despite the fact that, for example, all of Dragon Age Veilguard's voice actors, which is being published by EA, have gone, we are not doing any promotion for this game from now forward because of the strike. So, SAG really seems to be going, please, if you are connected to one of these projects, treat it as struck work regardless, while the publishers are trying to say, no, we're not struck work, it's fine, while their voice actors are literally going on strike and not doing promotion for their upcoming projects.
So weird that EA would be up to shady shit.
Right, so I wanted to point out that discrepancy because we are seeing examples of big companies trying to imply they're not being struck, while their voice actors are refusing to do work because of the strike. So, that is a thing worth knowing. But yeah, I don't think there's much else that we need to necessarily add at the second, just keep an eye on SAG-AFTRA's communications as to whether what they want from people to stand in solidarity with the strike changes at all. But for now, if you're talking about video games, maybe remind people there's a strike and keep an eye on whether they ask for anything else over time.
Yeah, pretty much. Whether you agree with, obviously I'm pretty pro-union. I know some people will want to have a backlash regardless, but this AI shit is fucking dangerous. And it's so threatening to a lot of... Even if you think your job is safe, like, they are trying to force AI into everything. I picked up a fucking can of energy drink that claims to be powered by AI.
Oh, like, that nice can of hell.
A nice can... Literally, a can of hell.
A can of hell.
Such a fitting name. Like, this affects so much. And obviously I've spoken about it from the perspective of a writer. Just today, I was looking at more jobs, and AI tutor was one of them. Not trainer, tutor. Like, I'm going to put on a little mortarboard and get an apple. But it isn't just writers, and it isn't just, like, performers and artists and stuff. They are desperate to find uses for AI, and they don't care who gets burned.
Like, the thing that should be really terrifying to people is that they are demonstrating all of this by means of creative industries and things like that, because that's exciting and fun and sexy in a lot of ways. But what's actually going to happen is if you have a job in a cubicle where you shift numbers around on a spreadsheet, you're fucked. because that it's actually going to be pretty good at. So just be conscious. These things, they're going to affect everyone on some level. And, you know, as I sort of warned with the cryptocurrency stuff, that has wormed its way into pension funds, and it is going to be inextricable from our economy. And we need to do everything that we can to keep AI from worming its way into industries in such a way that it can't be removed.
Indeed.
And also, just one more thing for the people who like respond to shit like this and have done like anything that is a threat to income of entertainers and artists and content creators, if you want to use that term. So many people will then smugly sit back and go, well, now they'll have to get a real job. Right. There were 10,000 layoffs minimum in the tech sector last year. And you want them all to join the same job market as you. How's that going to fucking work out for you?
Learn to Code's not looking like such great advice anymore, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I won't be smug about it, like, if it happens, but that's not going to work out well for anyone. I'm already fucking horrified at the amount of people the layoff epidemic has pumped, like just the amount, like the damage they've done to game industry jobs and tech sector jobs. And then if those people can't get jobs in their industries anymore, then they are going to look for the jobs that very small-minded people consider quote-unquote real. And the people working those jobs will get fucked because everyone's competing for the same work. We are in a position where people's livelihoods are being taken away, very much like they promised in the future that all robots will do everything for us, but they never explained how the people who are alive and living will have money to continue to live, because we don't have universal basic income. If you want to replace every single fucking human being in the world, you need to give those people money to live off.
Indeed. So, fun thing I do have for the start of episode 500. It's a fun fact that we've spent the first 20 minutes or so of episode 500 talking about politics and specifically unions. Because I did a little dig back to look 5 years back at Podquisition episode 251, the New 52 reboot.
The New 52 reboot. I need to bring that back. I need to do a New 52 reboot of New 52 reboot references.
The episode was called Naruto Honk.
Excellent.
It was primarily us talking about Untitled Goose Game and Gearbox doing union busting.
There you go.
That's fitting.
And even more to pull it back, you know, this 250 episodes has been bookended by politics, because do you know what the first, 15 minutes of Conrad being a permanent host on the show was? No discussion of video games, but it was a lot of us talking about how trickle-down economics is bullshit and not real, and how people get mad at people on benefits, but not mad at corporations and politicians for sucking up money.
Yeah, I literally made a glancing reference to that on this week's Jimquisition, just to show you how much the fucking world doesn't change. The amount of, the executive and investor classes taking the lion's share of the money and then, blaming it on poor people, who are poor because they don't suck up all the money.
It would be comforting if it wasn't so dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
Should we talk about some games we've played, and then I'll throw some other 500-y stuff in a little bit?
Yeah,
Who's played something they want to talk about?
Okay, so I've played more of that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is your opinion static? Is it changing?
I mean, it like a lot of these sort of, roguelike games, I tend to enjoy them the further in that I get more.
Yeah.
And I will say, I am enjoying this more. It is doing a few different things from Hades. I know that I said, it's 80% Hades, and that isn't fair in some respects, because it is doing a few things that distinguishes it from what Hades is. For example, the individual turtles are distinct based on their standard attacks, and they each have a unique special. that is really like character defining in terms of its function, and that's nice. But it's inescapable just how similar it is. And the more I play, the more that's exposed. And the thing that it's really attempting to do that is fundamentally different from Hades is the multiplayer, which is, it plays very well. Linda and I have been doing a run a night just, before we watch whatever nonsense television before bed. And it was one of those situations where it's not just me that's having this experience, but like we played it together once and she really wasn't into it, and I kind of needled her to play another round, and now she wants to play them regularly. Like it does have its charm that builds over time. But it has a curious drop-in, drop-out system that makes a lot of compromises in order for it to function. Any progress that you make with the second player, that, anything that you accomplish with the second player that might add progress to the game doesn't count. So there are resources that you get for defeating a certain boss with a specific turtle. And you will only receive that resource for player one's turtle when you clear that. Yeah. And it's not like the worst thing in the world, because you probably don't have the other resources necessary to be spent to acquire the upgrades that those will unlock. If you're getting them two at a time anyway, it would be a pacing thing. But it is a bit frustrating, particularly if you are a player that doesn't like how slow Donatello is, for example. And you have someone else that you're playing with who actually does enjoy that pace of play. And, you could get that progress done for you. Another interesting thing is, like I say, it's kind of drop in, drop out. You can join a run midway through in multiplayer. The way the game manages its local multiplayer is by selecting how many players will be playing from the title screen, and then selecting your turtles, and then it drops you into the game. But you can be dropped into a run that's in progress from the last autosave point. It's interesting. There's some mechanics of it that I'd be curious to know more information on how they function, because it seems as though a second player, or probably third or fourth, who's coming in mid-run and has not, as a result, has not acquired abilities to empower their turtle, they seem to get a significantly higher chance of being offered double rewards for at least a few opportunities in the run to sort of stack that up, which I appreciate a lot, especially because when the game crashes and you're in a multiplayer game, when you rejoin, it's as if, again, everything is just tied to that single player. And I can't really fault the developer for this, because I'm not sure how you'd make it really function otherwise, to where, like, you have up to 4 players with stored information, and what if you only have 2 people when you rejoin in? And, like, there's a complexity, and it introduces a lot of problems that you have never even considered to try and implement this and maintain a run across software closure or a change in venue or God knows what else. So it's hard to be particularly critical of this, but it's devastating emotionally when you are 5 encounters into the rooftops stages and you've got the shop and shredder coming up in just a couple of more, and the game crashes and the second player has to come in with fucking nothing and try to make it work. That's a real bummer to have happen. I just no longer listen to the audio.
That's me with most roguelikes after long enough.
Yeah, it's, I would like to have an option in... This is something all developers who make these types of games with an eye towards the player playing repetitively. If you have a lot of voiced dialogue, like incidental dialogue in your game, implementing a system where you can provide a toggle where it just doesn't repeat anything anymore would be great. I know it's, a little going to be a fiddly little process, but by God, there are people out there who would appreciate it deeply from the heart to not have to hear some of the same canned lines 1,000 times. It just really would mean something to me. It pings me a little bit just seeing the subtitle pop up on the screen as I'm playing. Like, oh, they said that again. But I do really like this. I think it is a game with merit. It is not better than Hades, the worst game ever made. It's biting its style so hard that I can't help but respect it because it is accomplishing that mimicry in a very effective manner. So, yeah.
Nice. You're selling me more on it over time.
It's a real hard sell at $30, though. That's real rough.
Here's the thing, you're not wrong, but I have some flights coming up soon, and I could go for a new game in this genre.
Yeah.
It'd be a good one for flights.
It would be.
This is usually where I would throw it over to you, Steph, for something you've played, and I will do that in a second, but I did forget that something happened that isn't video games this week, but it's my favourite thing I can't get out of my head, and you, Steph, in particular, I think will appreciate this.
Right.
I got my favourite fucking Fox News quote I've ever heard of someone trying to sound like they know what they're talking about.
Lovely.
And this was the host of a show called The Five, and I will give you word for word his quote. It's the end of a weird little diatribe he's doing about, like, men shouldn't vote for women for president, because if you do, it probably says you got mummy issues or whatever. But he ends with, I heard from some scientists recently that if a man votes for a woman, he actually transitions.
Sources, please. I need sources.
I did catch that this morning.
Don't worry, the best part of it is his co-host goes, oh really, is that true? And he responds, yeah, I heard it from scientists.
Excellent. I am now going to justify everything I ever say with, I heard it from some scientists.
I wish this man had told me sooner. Like, I live in the UK. There's been plenty of female politicians for, like, the Green Party and stuff I could have voted for. And just, vote for whoever get tits. I wish I knew that was an option.
My best friend from high school is a physical anthropologist. And I am now going to cite him for everything.
Yeah. Anything
everything.
You want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anything and everything.
Yeah. If he says it, you heard it from scientist.
Don't even know him. Gonna cite anyway. Yeah. I saw this post, I saw that quote in association with something else that's been going on, which is right-wingers getting really, really mad if you call them weird.
And they're so fucking upset that you would suggest maybe, they're a little bit weird sometimes.
I love it, 'cause it's such a mild... like insult.
It's gotten them all very suddenly going, let's talk politics only, let's talk policies, there's no need for personal attacks and degradement in politics.
Yeah, suddenly they care.
Really?
Well,
they can't help themselves because they will try, and then one of them will hit out with, oh yeah, if you vote for a woman, you turn trans. Like, they can't stop themselves being weird.
Well, and there's a reason why it is so effective. From, people who have a little more progressive or left-leaning bent, and it's that we've accepted that we're weird for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, we're comfortable with, we live in that. Like, we were raised in it.
I think that's part of the joy of it, is there is a clear difference between positive weird and negative weird, and we all sort of know it.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes it so mild.
They can't handle that idea, because it is everything about them is, this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. Everything I believe is normal.
Yes.
And this is the default. This is how it's supposed to be. And the more you can point out how just like, no, that's just kind of weird, dude. Like, have you thought about how weird that is?
Yeah, like that shakes their identity more than anything else. For once, they're actually feeling what it's like to have their identity attacked, because, you know, you can give them any insult under the sun and they'll brush it off. But if you suggest that they are not the default, as you say, Conrad, like, not as popular as they think they are, that they are fringe, but weird has a different connotation to fringe. Because with a fringe, you can also say, yeah, I'm like a edgy outsider. You can play it off that way, but weird, it just hits different.
Yeah. What you been playing this week, Steph? What you been up to?
I can't remember if I played Flintlock and talked about it last week, or if I started playing Flintlock after. I did.
Yeah,
okay, forget that then. I basically warmed to that one more and more. I never loved it, but I liked it. And I do think if you've got Game Pass, while Game Pass still has a shred of value, it might be worth looking into. I had a crack at Dungeons of Hinterberg. Looks very pretty. The combat is fine, like, and that. Something about it annoys me. The puzzles are, a lot of it relies on physics that are not themselves reliable, like rolling a ball onto a thing, and they're all just a bit wonky. And if you do a room with a puzzle in it, if you like fall down a chasm or something, which can be likely because it's one of them games where you don't manually jump, you get to the edge of something, and then she'll just throw herself off no matter which direction you were pointing in. And then whatever progress you were making in that room with a puzzle is reset. The game, by the way, is this sort of almost Zelda-ish kind of thing. You have environmental puzzles in dungeons and you fight monsters, and that's sort of the size of it. There's like a social aspect as well, just befriending people till you get benefits, the kind of transactional relationship that you see in games with this sort of relationship mechanic. Yeah, I just stopped playing it. I was looking at like playing through it for a review, but I determined that I'm just not gonna, it's not worth it. And it's a shame because I've seen like positive buzz around it and I can see why people would dig it, but between the puzzles just not being all that engaging and the jumping being automatic and genuinely fucking you over whenever it can, and also there's like a run button or like a run toggle, but if you so much as bump slightly into a wall or do anything, it toggles back to walking, and I hate it when games do that. I hate it when games have a flimsy run toggle. Just keep it toggled. But yeah, that's more or less it. I really don't have much to say about it.
That's fair. I've got a couple of things to say about not a specific game, but a trend in stuff I have been playing this week. We were talking in a completely different context before recording the show today about ignoring medical things and just sort of like not going, it's probably not that big a problem, just sort of ignore them. And that is sort of relevant to part of my week. So I'm going to start by talking about a gaming thing from like 12 years ago that has come back around this week, which is in 2011, the Nintendo 3DS got released, and that system's big gimmick was glasses-free 3D, which you could just put up a little slider and see 3D depth on the top screen. The 3D effect worked for me, but with a weird caveat. I had to tilt the left-hand side of the screen away from me and the right side toward me to make the 3D effect work. And it's not because I had a broken 3DS. I tried other people's 3DSs. This was constantly, I had to do this for the 3D effect to not look blurry. And 12, 13 years later, I went, both my parents needed glasses by the time they were my age, and I do spend a lot of time staring at screens.
That was my immediate thought, yeah.
I should probably, which I haven't done in 15 years, go to an optician's and see how my eyes are doing. Turns out, yeah, the reason that I had to tilt the left-hand side of my 3DS away for the 3D to work is because I'm farsighted in my left eye.
Overachieving.
Yeah, right. My eye just loves to look at shit in the distance, and it's like, stuff near me, fuck that. Stuff over there, much better. So I now have glasses for, if I'm, sat focusing on stuff that is near me, I have glasses now. And yeah, 13 years later, I've discovered when I wear my glasses, I can look at a 3DS and the 3D works without me having to tilt the screen away from my left eye.
Awesome. As I said on your stream the other day, they look fabulous on you.
Oh, thank you. But the thing that made that story click for me was the realization that I needed glasses in order to use glasses-free 3D properly. And that has amused me.
That's pretty good.
I have found that a little amusing.
Whenever something like this comes up, I'm always reminded of our dear sweet friend Jonathan Holmes.
Oh, Jonathan.
Who for years maintained the position that he didn't see what everyone was so crazy about with high-definition graphics.
Yeah.
He didn't understand what high-definition resolution meant, especially on like an LCD as opposed to a cathode ray tube display, until he went and got glasses. And realized that the problem had been with him all along.
I had a similar thing to the point where I was like, wait a minute, was that me? I didn't actually go around saying I didn't see the point of HD. But I was a bit disappointed that it didn't feel as dramatic as people said it was.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I do describe putting on glasses for the first time as going from SD to HD in real life. I don't know what it's like to be long-sighted, but as a short-sighted person, it really is like an old fucking tube television, and you've upgraded to, an HD TV.
Yeah, the main thing I'm finding is apparently my right eye is good as anything and has been doing all the legwork. It's basically been telling my left eye what it's supposed to be seeing,
right? Doing
the legwork of carrying it. But it's been nice to have. I didn't realize how much my depth perception was, at least in part, being fucked by my eyes being at different focal lengths. That's been a fun one, having being able to judge distance better. And in space. It's also been... I was playing Thumper, the sort of music rhythm-y game where you're a little beetle thing on a track. I have found that way easier to tell how far away the thing I need to press the button on is, because both my eyes are focusing on the same thing reliably. And that's a game that has been weird to play with glasses and suddenly go, oh, I can tell how far away the thing I'm meant to click on is. And I'm not just fucking guessworking it off of the soundtrack.
Yeah. It is wild getting glasses later in life. It's wild.
My mother has the same issue you do, actually. But she had it to such an extent that in childhood she had to wear a patch for a period of time to strengthen her other eye. And I have it as well. It's significantly less of an issue for me.
I'll start wearing a patch.
Yeah. You should
be Nadine from Twin Peaks.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But no, I got glasses earlier this year, and they're just like readers, but just to compensate for that eye, which is weakening over time, so.
Yeah, mine are mainly for I'm sat at the computer working and both my eyes need to focus close up, but yeah, the other thing that was weird, and this is a slight side note, I have astigmatism as well, so I look at lights in the dark and everything sort of rainbow flares off them.
Yeah.
Being able to look at an emergency exit sign in the dark and just actually see the clear outline of the shape and not the lights sparking off it, because apparently glasses my glasses apparently also correct for that. I'm like, oh, is this how you fuckers been living? Oh. So yeah, that's, I guess, a thing I've played this week. Before we go around again, I have some more Podquisition episodes of the last 250 to remind us about.
Okay.
Podquisition episode 258 was titled Deadly Jimquisition.
Nice.
And this was the episode in which Steph was very excited to be on the cover of Deadly Premonition.
I remember when that
that brief window of time where that was a thing to be happy about.
When that taste didn't have a bitter, little twang to it, yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting episode to go back to in context. The way that things turned out with Deadly Premonition 2 sucks, but this episode is still a really nice one to go back to and just listen to genuinely very excited and happy Steph, and it's a really nice one to listen to despite the bittersweet of where it's going. We also have Podquisition 264, Cats Are Not Dogs. Do either of you remember the context for this?
Oh, no.
This was when Cats the Musical had come out, which ends on the revelatory note by Judi Dench. And this is like the final words she gets in the musical, is that, I hope that you've learned by the end of this musical that a cat is not a dog.
It's not a dog.
A cat is not a dog is a whole little speech she gives.
Oh, thank you, Dame Dench. Dame Judi Dench, who I grew up watching and adore, but every single piece of brilliant performance work she's done means nothing in comparison to that revelation. It truly changed my life.
I found the full quote. It was, "So first, your memory I'll jog, and say a cat is not a dog."
See, this is why my last 3 dogs starved to death when I tried to feed them cans of Whiskers.
Oh, it's just...
Alright, could have saved me so much, so much digging.
Also of note, and this is the last ones I'll do before we move on to other stuff, Podquisition 273 and 274, so this was maybe 6 months into the New 52 reboot. I didn't even have to click on and listen to the episodes to tell exactly what was going on in the world at that time, because we had 2 episodes back-to-back called Toilet Paper, and we've also watched Tiger King.
Oh.
Yeah, this was where the episode descriptions start talking about we're living in the weird, scary times.
Yeah.
Was the weird, vague way we were talking about it. I didn't remember that was quite as at the start of Conrad joining as it was.
Yeah, that is surprising.
It's hard to realize that shit kicked off almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because you joined in, it would have been 2019 around October, I think. So yeah, we are 4.5 years out from that now, coming up on 5 years. Coming up on 5 years from you joining, 4.5-ish on the world going a bit sideways.
Yep.
And that was personally tough times for me as well. I have it associated in my head, Tiger King, with I just moved to Philadelphia and was in an apartment that was wholly unsuitable.
Yes.
No accessibility access and tiny little closet that was getting warped floors and the lack of privacy because you could hear everything in the other apartments. I said on an episode of Boston's Favorite Son, I know when something funny happened upstairs because she fucking loves to laugh. And then by the time I could hear toilets flushing and stuff like that, dear God, I had to move out.
Yeah, but as rough as things were, I went back and listened to some Podquisition episodes to pick some to talk about here. One thing that's really nice listening to those couple of episodes is it's very clear that while everything was very uncertain, that we were all appreciating having a bit of routine we were coming to, and that it was a social thing that had a routine and a structure that we were doing. And there is something nice about listening to those couple of episodes and going, well, yeah, we were all benefiting from being there.
People had to find ways to come together and gain an appreciation for the bits of stability that we had in our lives at that time. And so,
and I think you can definitely hear in some of the episodes around that era, it was good to have a place that wasn't changing in everything. Yeah. So, yeah. Conrad, you played anything else this week?
Well, I did. I picked up that new Earth Defense Force 6 that just dropped.
Ooh.
Yeah, and if you have played an Earth Defense Force game in the past, this is an Earth Defense Force game.
Oh, I'm out.
I mean, I don't know what your expectation is going to be by Earth Defense Force 6. You're shooting giant bugs, and you pick up lots of weapons from the environment that are dropped by those giant bugs, and then you can apply those weapons to a new loadout to go and shoot more giant bugs. The things that are notably different in this iteration from ones that I've played in the past, and some of these might be changes that were implemented at some point in one game that I've either not played or can't remember. But notably, armor, which is the health system for the game. Historically, you increase your character's max health by collecting armor drops from enemies mid-play, and so it's sort of a gradual experience growth system. In this one, the armor pickups that you get are actually designated for the 4 individual classes of unit that you can play as. So it's not global, and that's weird. And you'll go and pick up a bunch of the armor tokens, and then at the end of the round, it'll be like, all right, your ranger went up by 6, your wing armor went up by 8, and it's like, okay, this seems unnecessarily granular.
And that's my problem with like EDF, because people always assume I'm gonna love it. They're like, you like Dynasty Warriors, it's just like that, except you shoot giant bugs. That's a great selling point to me, but every time I've played one, I've found them slow and grinding, and that just seems like it'll add more.
Yeah, it does sort of seem that way. But on the plus side, I will say visually, this is the best looking EDF I've ever played. And I include in that the voxel one.
World Brothers.
The
one EDF I do like, because it's not as slow and everything as the others.
Yes, and I truly do think that EDF World Brothers is the most fun EDF game.
They got a sequel coming out.
Oh, good. That's
That's
exciting.
on the horizon.
I'm looking forward to that then. But this, easily the best looking one, and the one that makes the most sense visually and aesthetically in the context of its setting. This game is set like 5 years after the first alien invasion, and like if there's continuity between any of these games, I defy you to explain it to someone. But the setup for this is that it's post an attack, and you're dealing with the remnants, and eventually they're going to come back. And so the cities that you're running through and killing these things, they're not pristine. This is not the first game where the aliens are coming back. But at least this time, it's clear that they'd been there because the cities are fucked. The flip side of that is that now a lot of the like incidental dialogue feels really weird because people are like, what a lovely city. And it's like, are you seeing the same thing I am? Like, it definitely has broadened the weirdness of its B-movie dialogue. And there is so much of it. Like, they're constantly prattling on. And I haven't played a ton yet, but I've played a few hours, and it feels like there's just so much dialogue trash in here that even if they repeat some things, I feel like I'm going to be digging out gems for a long, long time. So yeah, I like it. If you like EDF as a series, it's doing the same shit, but it looks better. There's huge fuck off frogs in the first level now.
Yeah, that I did see. That had my attention.
Yeah. There's some neat enemy types in here. They look a lot less sort of cheap. Everything looks less cheap, which to some extent was part of the charm of EDF, but it's got so much fucking charm and jank everywhere else that the fact that it looks pretty good as opposed to looking cheap doesn't work against it. I'm having fun. I'll keep playing it, and I will eventually get burnt out on repeating levels after another probably 10 more hours of playing it, and then I will put it away, never to resume. And I'll probably boot up World Brothers and continue that, because that game is fucking great.
Interesting little bit about it. It's got mixed reviews on Steam. People pretty dissatisfied with the fact you need an Epic Game account on Steam to play it.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where they put out a statement. The EDF6 development team is currently reviewing / reassessing the requirement.
I think would be good, because if I'm honest, if the purpose was to have some sort of piracy protection, it didn't work.
Oh, obviously not. Yeah, they've claimed it was for to make cross-platform better. I don't know, one can't ascertain the veracity of that, especially if they're deciding now, and maybe we don't need it.
Yeah. If you're able to backpedal on it, then you didn't need to do it.
Exactly. I was thinking of trying it out on Steam, like on my deck, but I am put off when I have these sort of third-party sign-ins. Because even if I've got an account, I won't remember it. I don't remember anything. And then I've got to, dig through emails or, send,
or
get
do a
requests.
Password recovery.
Yeah, and it's just... sorry, no. I bought the game, and you use a service like Steam in part because it's all under one roof,
Yep.
So yeah, I don't get super angry like some people, but it does put me off.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Steph? You played anything else this week?
No. I finished Silent Hill 2 for the second time on stream this time, but my thoughts haven't changed. It's still fucking brilliant and beautiful. It's really been played on my mind this time. Not to this degree since I first played it 20 years ago. So I've just been watching all sorts of analyses and things on it and stuff. Went back over the Silent Hill 4 foreskin theory, which was not worth digging into. It became a huge, horrible controversy. But yeah, it's just been on my mind a lot. I did download Silent Hill Origins on my Steam Deck, the PS2 version. Played about as much as I played when I first tried it on PSP, to be honest. Oh shit, I forgot what I did. Oh my god.
What did you do?
If I'd have pretended that I remembered it was episode 500, this would be perfect. Hang on. Sorry. For the prepared for the 500th episode, because I totally remembered. It's time for a little trip to Stephanie's Vita Corner. That's right. The thing people latched onto and loved, not because of the actual content, but just because it had a jingle. Stephanie's Vita Corner is back.
You gibbering fools. This we talk a lot about jangling keys. But
it literally is me finding whatever on my desk to make a noise with.
It's good that you did this, because I was about to jump in with a knockoff of Stephanie's Vita Corner. See, we got the original in before I jump in with my knockoff that will be coming.
Well, there we are. Not a knockoff, a spin-off. That's how we franchise.
It's a knockoff.
All right, it's a knockoff. Stephanie's Vita Corner. I can't find any of my Vita games, for one thing. I found every single physical video game I own, and except the ones I'm looking for. So they're in the house somewhere, but I had an urge to pick it back up. I played a bit of Proteus, remembered what that was and stopped. Visually fascinating, and that's it. Also played Book of Memories because I was on that Silent Hill kick. And normally when I play Silent Hill Book of Memories, I'm like, oh, it's a shame, because for all the controversy and people like angry at this, and I did defend the concept, and I would again, but I was like, it's just a shame that the gameplay is not all that great. It's kind of so-so. Going back to it this time, I fucking hated it. I'm actually actively angry at it. It's full of terrible fucking design ideas. The map layout, it's horrible. It doesn't loop around ever. It's like a roguelike layout with rooms joined by corridors, but they all split off into individual spokes that you've got to backtrack through. It's based on a survival horror game. Survival horror games already know that you can lock a door, come up with a thing that loops back around, and then have them unlock it from that side to get back more conveniently. They should know how to do this. Their way forward, they should know better. Even back then, they should have known better. But they don't. All the maps branch off and then don't come back. And so you've got to walk back through the same rooms. And if you want to make some, in-game money by picking up all the weapons and selling them at the store, which is going to be at the end of its own fucking branch, it's such a slog. To say nothing of the fact that the combat is actually fucking terrible. It's really bad. The dodging and defending is so inefficient, and you are just hammering them with a weapon while they hammer you and constantly knock you over. It's very frustrating to play, and I don't know why I'm truly seeing it for what it was than I did even 2 years ago when I, had the corner first time round. Maybe it's because I just got done playing Silent Hill 2 and remember what a truly exceptional Silent Hill is like, but it's really frustrating. It's just very badly made. And it's a shame because I did defend the concept, because before it came out, Silent Hill fans were furious. They would insult Tom Hewlett, the producer, who always got way too much flack from the Silent Hill fan base. He was a guy who truly did care about the series and was doing his best, and he worked for Konami. There's only so much you can do against that tidal wave of Konami-ness. And I would defend it again. I would love to see a Silent Hill dungeon crawler that was good. Because it's a spin-off, first and foremost. Narratively, it don't matter. So don't get all up in arms about it. We've also had some fucking genuine insults to the series come since then. And I'm a sucker for a real out there idea. And taking Silent Hill and making it a dungeon crawler where you're getting loot and all of that. And you can't really enjoy the loot in that game because all the weapons break. We won't go into my thoughts on that concept, but in a game like this, I think even people who accept weapon durability would agree with me that it's unacceptable in a game like this where you're trying to have a dungeon crawler experience and loot is given as quest rewards and the loot breaks all the time. It does not suit this type of game. It really doesn't suit. Plus the grenades. Why did they put in grenades? You get hit before you can throw them, and you throw them over the heads of the enemies that are hitting you. Terrible idea. So, yeah. Played that. Made me mad. That's this week's. Probably last. Maybe next week. I don't know. Until I'm bored of it. That's Stephanie's Vita Corner. There we are.
I've got a couple of last things I've played I can very quickly rattle through. I might save one. I might save one for next week when I have to talk about it in a bit more depth. I played a really shitty, short, disappointing game that was a tie-in to a much better piece of media. I've probably talked about this on Podquisition before, but there is a Five Nights at Freddy's adjacent film that exists called Willy's Wonderland.
I've seen that.
In which, Nicolas Cage is the main character. He doesn't say a fucking word from start to finish. It's one of his best performances. He does a great job.
Yeah.
It is a real fun take on the locked in a pizzeria with a bunch of animatronics genre.
It's a very stupid film, but I use that in the context where I use it as a positive.
Yeah.
It is enjoyably
indeed.
dumb.
It is a film that is 50% Nicolas Cage amazingly effectively fighting robots, and 50% a film about a man who, despite the world around him going to shit, will be damned if he doesn't take his mandated break every couple of hours, because you take your breaks at work when you're given them. No one stops you taking your breaks. There is a Willy's Wonderland game that is recently released. I found it on the PlayStation Store. I don't know if it's on anything else. It's like £3. It's pretty fucking cheap, but there's a reason for that. So, here's a few things. One, it doesn't have the license to even vaguely pretend it's representing Nicolas Cage as its main character. Two, it is a very clunky side-scrolling beat-em-up game, where you have two attacks, a very slow, sluggish punch on one button, and a very lengthy cooldown for your other button. And you know what the other button does? It makes, definitely not Nicolas Cage, couldn't be further from Nicolas Cage, T-pose, and then spin like a fucking spinning top.
Hagar. He does a Hagar.
Yeah, a little bit of a Hagar, like a much more stupid Hagar.
Wow.
And the game is maybe half an hour long.
Wow.
Because it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you have 3 lives, ... but as long as you, get as far as the boss, you get all your lives back, and if you run out of lives, you only start from the start of the current bit. So, there's not... the game's not challenging enough that 3 lives isn't gonna be enough to get through a stage. And it's not particularly challenging, and it's very generic. Most of the enemies aren't even animatronics. They're just a man in a they're the same one man in a mask over and over. It's really fucking shit. It's the kind of lazy cash grab tie-in that you expect for a much bigger name film, to cash in on the fact that millions of people have seen a film and are looking for something to play based on it. You don't expect this kind of low-effort cash-in for, an A24 kind of cultish horror film.
Maybe we should.
It's not good. I didn't expect it to be good, but it was way worse than I was anticipating it could possibly be.
That is sad, though, because you're right. When it is something that's clearly going to be niche, with limited appeal, right, you would hope that they would make the effort to make something that might satisfy someone who has a niche interest, you know?
You know what it got me thinking about? It reminded me of the Renfield, which was, again, I think a Nicolas Cage, the film where he's a vampire that came out. Yeah, they made a Vampire Survivors Renfield game. I think it was called Bring Your Blood.
I remember
or something
you talking
like that.
about that.
And I've gone back and played that recently, and they've kept adding content to it. It's not cream of the crop Vampire Survivors, but it has a good chunk of its own ideas, a good amount of content in it. That's what I would accept out of weird cult horror gets a tie-in game, is yeah, you picked a genre that people have already done, and you clearly based it on an existing popular work, but you brought some of your own ideas to it, and you, supported it post-release, and it was worth giving a few hours to. This is not that. So yeah, I think that's everything I've played this week. I've got one other thing, but I'll save that for next week, probably. Either of you got anything else you've played this week you want to talk about? I
just need to say you unknowingly made a mistake.
Yeah?
A grievous error. because I've been recently watching a bunch of Macho Man Randy Savage promos, and you said cream of the crop. The cream rises to the top. Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah. And now, once I've done that, that will lead Conrad to delight me.
Oh, yeah. Cream rises to the top. I just saw footage last night of a match between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Oh!
Yes, where Harvey the Wonder Hamster defeated the Macho Man. This was on the Weird Al show, a 1997 CBS-produced live-action children's program that ran for one season. They were attempting to, like, recapture the magic of Pee-wee's Playhouse, but they also did it under more stringent FCC scrutiny, requiring that children's content be educational, and it totally fucked the production of the show.
Oh, no.
But there's some really choice stuff in that Weird Al show. If you've not seen it, it's a real delight.
So the educational bent came in with Randy Savage. I imagine to teach children about the dangers of cocaine.
Well, it's so funny. I was watching a YouTuber who was running down the history of this recently, and good for them. They said this was their first YouTube video ever, and I was like, "Well, welcome. You're doing great.
Yeah.
This was congratulations." But they were explaining that the CBS came in and required them to, they gave them notes and required very, very specific moral lesson, like, needed to be illustrated. And they'd already written and, to great extent, shot this entire series. And so they had to go back and, like, recut the episodes to try and make them fit the framework of this moral lesson thing after they figured one out that would thematically work. And then they inserted this very obvious cut. You'll love this, where they had, in a calligraphy font, printed out the lesson on a piece of paper, and it's in front of the camera, and Billy West is reading it with the most awkward narration possible, randomly selecting words to emphasize.
Oh, wow, that sounds great.
And then the page is torn down the middle to reveal the scene behind it. And it was their quick fix to both make, poke a little fun at the fact that they were required to do this and get a little malicious compliance in, while at the same time accomplishing it. It's fascinating. It's a neat little show. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Before we get to a couple more episodes that I want to remind us of the existence of, as it's episode 500, it's a special episode. I went out and found more video game themed beverages, so I've got one of those with me today.
Wonderful.
Today we have Sonic the Hedgehog Golden Rings.
I don't want to drink anything of Sonic's that's golden.
What? You don't want to drink his golden ring?
No! It just sounds like he got Dr. Robotnik to piss up his ass.
The liquid is not golden. It is a clear liquid. His golden rings. Right. Disappointing. Okay. Flavor predictions for Sonic's golden rings.
Does it provide any, like, guidance as to what the flavors are supposed to resemble?
I don't know. I've delibereately not gone, reading the small text on the can to find out. I'm going in as blind as I can on this.
I don't know why, and I'm almost certainly wrong, but my knee-jerk reaction is to say it tastes like energy drink, like a can of regular Monster.
My assumption...
Yeah, you reckon that's just golden flavor?
Yeah.
My assumption is that there might be a bit of a pineapple flavor in that, but that's the closest I could come to tying those.
I could see something like a lemon or something, like a yellowy fruit being a golden ring.
Like one of those cop-out flavors, like tropical blend, where it's just a bunch of fruits. Commit!
Oh. I know what that flavor is, and I'm trying to put together what the connection is there. So the flavor's peach.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if it's meant to be like peach rings, the sweets.
Sure.
They're a thing? Peach rings are a thing?
Okay.
I wouldn't have described them as golden. I wouldn't have described them as a golden fruit.
I would have... Of the two words that you provided me, golden and rings, I would not have gone with the noun as the basis for the flavor. I would have gone with the adjective. And that's my fault, you know? That's me assuming.
Yeah, one would think.
I had a blue Pepsi the other day. I got this Pepsi Electric.
How was?
Well, you reminded me because you said peach rings, which incidentally I now want some. It tastes like Haribo. Like someone made Haribo soup.
Oh.
Harig gazpacho.
I've seen adverts for this and I assumed it was going to be like, you poured some blueberry syrup into a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Was my assumption.
I think the official flavour is just like citrus. It's like Pepsi with citrus fruit in it. But the result, and I've had 2 of them, and on my second go trying to place it, I was like, yeah, this is like someone melted a packet of Haribo Star Mix and made it fizzy. It's not terrible, and it is blue.
It's not what I associate blue with.
No, I associate it with Sonic. Why isn't the Sonic drink blue?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got a couple of other episode reminders I'm going to throw in here, and these are just a couple that of just like fun little memories. Podquisition 296 was Alexander Candlebum.
Alexander Candlebum, I remember.
Yeah. This lives in my head because I can't hear the music of Hamilton anymore without singing in my head. Alexander Candlebum, his name is Alexander Candlebum, and there's a million things he hasn't bummed, but just you wait. Just you wait.
I have an update to that. I still have not heard Hamilton.
Go listen to the opening number purely.
Oh,
with,
I believe you.
There's a million things he hasn't bummed in his head.
I think I've heard the cadence of that,
bit.
I listened to NPR.
I think I sung it at the time, like Alexander Candlebum.
Yeah.
I think,
yeah. There was episode 334, covered in gamer goo, the episode in which I received samples of gamer deodorant cream for your hands.
Hand-drying cream.
That just drew the moisture out of my hands.
Horrible, making them all withered like mum ras.
Yeah, terrible, terrible things. That is a product that is still on sale and out in the world, apparently. Apparently there is enough of a market that people continue to buy the goo deodorant.
I dread to think what it would do to me, because I have, really sensitive skin, and if it dries just a little, it'll crack and bleed. I used to have it really bad when I was a teenager, and now I only get it if I put my hands in the big rubber lobster gloves I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got all sorts of skin allergies and stuff like that. I imagine
I would not recommend the goo.
Oh, yeah. I imagine if I put the gamer goo on, the flesh would peel away and I'd just have skeleton hands, which, admittedly, would be rather cool.
It would be kind of cool. And the last one I've thrown on here, just because I miss it, it was a time. Podquisition 336 is called Moon Goddess.
Oh.
And this was the first time I got an email from Bethia. Or at least the first time I talked about getting my emails from Bethia. Who, I don't remember if I've talked about this. She has a YouTube channel. My Moon Goddess lady who was trying to get me to buy all her crystals.
I feel like you may have mentioned it, but I've also forgotten the details and am well up for hearing it again.
I mean, she hasn't updated her YouTube channel in the last 4 years, but the one video of hers that I sat and watched from that channel is a 6-minute long video called Always Expect the Unexpected with Uranus.
I refuse to do that. I always know what my anus is up to, and I always know what's up to my anus.
You refuse the premise that there would be something unexpected with your anus.
Yeah, I keep close tabs on it. I know what my anus is doing at all times.
I've done research. I've tried finding. No one gets emails from her anymore. The phenomenon of the Bethia emails has ceased. I'm like, I genuinely hope you're okay out there, Bethia.
I'd feel almost abandoned.
Right. What will I do without the guidance to tell me the next mythical being I'm a reincarnation of? How will I know how to proceed? So, before we finish up, are you both up for a couple of listener questions for episode 500?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a couple of those. Let me have a look through. I found some, and let me have a look. Genuinely interesting question from Phil Edwards. How do you keep doing this? For every great and uplifting game you get to experience, there are 10 horrific things happening in the industry. How do you keep yourselves motivated?
Oh,
it's my job.
Yeah,
I have to.
I mean, that helps.
I've become increasingly more and more removed from it. I have a certain level of distance from these issues that allow me to compartmentalize them, and just sort of, this. But the alternative is, and not to say that there aren't other people out there who try to raise these alarm bells and keep people aware of what's going on and things like that. There is a certain feeling that if we weren't here to do it, it wouldn't exist.
That is what I was going to say, is there's a big part of my feelings on it, which is if I don't keep waffling on about this, there's going to be a lot of people who just stop hearing about this stuff, and that is part of it, but also, for me, a part of it is, I bring these things up because I think the industry can be better, and should be better, and deserves to be better, and this industry isn't going to get better by ignoring the problems it has. No. And I live in hope that things can improve with this industry, and that by talking about them and not letting these things fade away, that pressure will stay to do something about them.
Yeah. I mean, to answer a little more deeply, I've done this for 15 years. Working in games media. I know no other way. And what I mean by that is, not that I couldn't change, because, I've been talking rather openly about, getting into other avenues of work. But it's not that I don't know how to do anything else, it's that I don't quite know how to stop this. I am compelled, and part of what makes it easy to do is, after 15 years, so much of this is running off instinct. I can instinctively make a whole Jimquisition without even really needing to think a lot about it. It'll be Monday and I'll be like, oh, I've done something.
Yeah.
And not that I'm on autopilot. It just comes out. And that's how I've always, written and spoke and done anything. It just pours out of me, and I can't do anything about it, for good or ill.
Yeah, I get it. Look, I've been doing the job of this for longer than this, but we've been doing, me and you have been doing Podquisition together for coming up on 10 years now. And it's, the amount of the politics that has been in the show has waxed and waned over time, but I'm very similar in as much as I have these opinions in me, and I need an outlet somewhere for them, and this is as good a place as any to scream into the void about the state of things. With people who are going to go, yeah, that is shit. You're not wrong for thinking that's pretty shit.
And I'm less that way. I am not especially compelled to put forth opinions about things, unless if it's something I think it's important to point out. I certainly don't have a problem doing that. But at least with regards to doing this show and doing it every week, it's also because of the people that I'm doing it with that it's this relationship is something that I look forward to engaging with every single week. And so that's a big part of it too.
Agreed. More light-hearted of a question. Hurricane wants to ask, what's your prediction of the weirdest thing that will happen within the next 500 episodes?
Weirdest?
Yeah, what's the most unexpected thing you reckon's going to happen in the next 10 years of maybe this show still clinging on?
Are we going to talk industry or our lives or the podcast?
I mean, wherever you want to throw it. It could just be, there's going to be... Maybe you reckon there's going to be an episode in which you will forget that you're recording and do a big burp in the microphone and then go, oh no, and then make a song about it. Like, whatever. I don't know. What's the weird... What you got?
I think the weirdest thing is going to be the 6-week streak of episodes during which Steph leads with serious video game discussion.
I reckon the weirdest thing that's going to happen is the weird little arc that's going to happen when... I don't know if you've heard that, like, the Olympics, esports are coming to the Olympics. Yeah. I think the stretch of episodes in which it gets announced that we are the new announcers, like the commentators for the Olympic esports tournament, and the show becomes, like, very serious esports discussion with the backing of the Olympics. That's going to be a weird period for the show.
I think it would be better if they just backed the show as it currently is and we just said it was commentary on esports. Nobody watching the Olympics is going to know the fucking difference.
No,
exactly. They mentioned video games. That's probably correct.
I think the weirdest thing that could happen on this show, in the industry and worldwide, is for nothing weird to happen for a while.
It's true.
And I'm not just trying to be clever with that, but we
live
in interesting times, and we've all learned that's horrible.
The Irish say it's a curse. They're right.
Genuinely, let's be honest, this all kick-started with the death of David Bowie. And it all went 100%. Downhill from there. Because that was what it was. I think 2016 was that. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, this is the worst year ever. So many... beloved people have died. And then it just got worse and worse and worse until we're here in 2024. Societally traumatized. We are all en masse traumatized by current affairs to some degree, And honestly, just a couple of weeks where nothing dramatic happens would be the weirdest thing.
This question, I think, maybe a little more for me and Steph. This one, Gino asks, "How long did you expect this podcast to last when you recorded episode 1?"
I don't know.
Steph, did you reckon this was going to make 500?
It's a weird thing because you just don't think about it. I never thought about how long the Jimquisition would last, how long Podquisition would last. I used to worry about what I would do when I'm finally 40. And I guess to some degree, I didn't imagine I'd still be doing it. Elements of what I do are looking pretty limited. The show, the Jimquisition in particular, I intend to keep at it for a while, but, numbers down all across the board financially and in terms of the channel. And part of the reason why I'm looking for... I said it on a Jimquisition on the AI episode. I'm looking for more full-time writing work because this ain't sustainable anymore. But at the time, you don't think about that. I didn't set up the podcast thinking this is going to run for 10 years or this is only going to run for 3 or 4. So no, I didn't imagine it because I didn't imagine the end.
I'll say this. This is the longest any of your podcasts have run.
Yeah.
It's the longest any of mine have run. Because I looked at, your runs on, I think Podtoid was, 180, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Was, your previous longest running, and... Yeah, I came into... I've told this story before. Episode 1 of this show, when you asked me to be on it, I assumed you were asking me to guest on, a single episode of a thing. I did not initially realize this was, do you want to come be co-host on a thing? The idea that I was even, going to be a host on it, let alone that it would be a thing that would survive this long, just was not on my radar. I very quickly went from I'll guest on a thing once to now it's a decade later and I'm still doing this as a job. Because when this started, I wasn't even full-time doing this. The first couple of Podquisition episodes were right around when I was still working a supermarket job and just trying to make the leap over to this, and I had no idea if I was going to be able to make video game stuff be my job. And the fact this is still going, hell yeah. I don't know a huge number of podcasts that have survived 10 years. A lot of them drop off long before.
Yeah. Like, it is an achievement, no matter what sort of happens. It's a huge achievement that this has been able to successfully run for as long as it has.
Yeah.
You know.
You would need to not sleep for over 3 weeks to listen to all the episodes of this show. I don't know the exact maths, but rough maths. Over 3 weeks of all day, no sleep to get through all of the video game opinions we've had.
We'll put Jonathan in a box and pipe that audio in an extremely high volume just to firm those numbers up for you.
But yeah, we've hit about an hour and a half, so maybe this is a good place for us to wrap up.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
We made a thing of episode 500.
We did
it.
Real quick though, I do want to shout out the workers at Bethesda and the workers at Blizzard who have unionized within Microsoft. Congratulations. Very happy for you. I wish you all the success in the world in your negotiations.
Thank you for remembering that. It fell through the cracks last week, and then trying to remember to do episode 500-y stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll remember this, and then the strike happened, and that ate up my brain. Thank you for remembering that. Hurrah for more fucking unions. I'm glad that...
And broad-scale unions, too. That's just so good to see.
It's been one of the best things that has happened in these last 500 episodes, is going from the video game industry's first proper, like, workers' union within a big AAA company as a one-off through to this kind of snowballing. It's been so good to see.
Yep.
It's been so reassuring. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah,
we did it. There we go.
A momentous milestone for the show, celebrating the arrival of 500 days as PCW Women's Champion. Thank you all for, like, both of you for coming to celebrate that. And yes, thank you really to like all the listeners and supporters that have kept this going, because that is why it is here. The people on Patreon who are still here, thank you for that. You've made sure that even at the lowest ebb, the Jimquisition has remained a success, because fucking ain't losing money. And allow me to, like, continue to do this, which, as a disabled person, has always been a huge relief, you know? Like, because I couldn't cut it in a lot of what those arrogant fuckheads on social media call real jobs. Mm-hmm. Being able to do all of this has been not just, a wonderful, amazing experience, but a huge fucking relief. Thank you for allowing this show to run for almost 10 years, this one, and the Jimquisition in November will have run for exactly 10 years. Yeah, thank you. 500 episodes. As I said a moment ago, I didn't imagine that, because I couldn't have conceived that far ahead professionally. But it's been a delight to be here, and thank you all so much. And thank you, Laura, and thank you, Conrad, as well, for everything over the years.
Thank you both for everything.
Yes, this has been some of the most, like, wonderful work with wonderful people that I could have asked for, and I was so grateful to be asked to come on, and I hope we get to do it forever.
Aww.
You're gonna have to drag me away kicking and screaming, so, I'll be around for a bit at least.
Well, there we go.
Unless Sonic and his golden rings, take me out before then.
Yeah. Do make sure that you have your next of kin on standby, just in case. Something else that you always have on standby is people willing to give you money for all the great work you do. And could you just tell us about the great work you do so people can support that and check you out?
What, me?
Yeah.
Me? Yeah. Well, you can find all the stuff I do at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. If you want to chuck as little as $1 a month over there, or, more if you're feeling frisky, no pressure if you can't, but if you can, that's always appreciated. It's what allows me to do this full time. things that I've got coming up this week. I am really excited about the fact that I'm doing a talk this weekend on Saturday as part of the Black Girl Gamers Summit. I was asked to come do a panel talk about accessibility in video games. The whole event looks really cool. Go check out Black Girl Gamers Summit. It is a whole day of really interesting panel events that are being put together with a focus on trying to make games as an industry better and getting diverse voices talking about a breadth of perspectives on how we can improve games. It's a really cool looking event, really excited to have been invited to be a part of it. Go check out all of the panels happening, but also particularly come check out the one that I'm doing. That is on Saturday afternoon and evening UK time. Check my social media for specifics on that. What about you, Conrad? Whereabouts are you on the internet?
Oh, you could find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I'm usually on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
That is correct. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports, well, Jimquisition stuff, obviously. The videos, the website with the reviews, and this very podcast. I've also, as of a few weeks ago, returned to Twitch streaming. I don't have a schedule because chronic pain and life happens all the time at me. But it is at Twitch TV/Jim Sterling. My next wrestling appearance, I've been saying it's August 14th. I think it's August 20th, but I've still not been announced for it anyway. But just look up PCW and have a look at when their Preston show is, when it's announced. But I should be visible in Preston's High Street in mid-August. I will also be at Tidal Wrestling on September 1st in Huddersfield. And I will be at True Grit Wrestling again on September 28th, and that's in Leeds. So look up those promotions. And of course, if you're so inclined, feel free to check out Date Everything. It is on Steam. It's wishlistable if you feel like doing that. I can't talk a lot about the details of the game, but I can tell you I very much believe in it. So yeah, Date Everything. That is the next sort of project coming out that I've done writing for. And regardless of what happens, come rain or shine, we will see you next week because we will be here. So thank you all for that, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.